Hey, it's Blast on Mike, and welcome to Blast on Mike's Fire Rock TV show. And today I have a guest. Now, I don't know this guy, never knew this guy, but I seen something pop up on my Facebook about ruby red slippers because, as you know, I went to see Wicked, and every time you talk about something, it pops up on your Facebook. So today, my guest is go ahead and tell everybody who you are.
Hi, Mike. I am Michael Maskery Birch. I'm a longtime Wizard of Oz fan, collector, little bit of a historian, but I wouldn't categorize myself in that arena. And old Hollywood collector, passionate about movie memorabilia and Hollywood history.
Wow, that's cool, man. So do you remember the first time you ever saw Wizard of Oz?
Oh, I sure do. I was probably about 3 years old. And it made a lasting impression. I remember seeing it, at my grandparents' house. It was, back then it was only on once a year. You could only catch it once, and if you missed it, you missed it. So it was a big deal when it was on. It was sort of a national event, and people, gathered around their TV, and the family gathered around, and you made a big deal of it because it was only on that once a year, and you could only, that was your one opportunity to see it.
Yeah, I remember those days. I was talking to a
Yeah,
friend of mine
yeah.
the other
I know
day.
we're dating ourselves, we're aging ourselves, but yes, this was the days before VHS and DVD.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday because we just watched the new Star Wars show, Skeleton Crew,
Oh, cool.
and
Okay, yeah,
we were like, I remember the days of you had so much TV, but now it's like there's so much TV that you can't watch it all. I mean,
oh
if I
yeah,
was to watch what came out yesterday on the app on my TV today, I'd be here all day watching 24 hours of TV.
right. You'd be streaming for hours and hours. You'd never leave. There's so much
Just
content, and they keep coming out with new stuff, which is actually really cool because I mean, and this is a great tie into Wicked. What we were kind of discussing a little bit earlier. It's really introducing Oz and these characters. Same thing with Star Wars. To a whole new generation, which is really awesome because as we get older, the younger generation is starting to develop that interest that we had when we were younger. I mean, we still have the interest, but they're the future collectors. They're the future, historians. They're the future of what's keeping these characters and this stuff going and alive. And it's so important, because you don't. It is part of our shared cultural heritage, and it is part of our shared history. And if that dies, it goes away. Future generations aren't going to know how important and how impactful these things were.
well, one thing that I didn't know, me and my wife just got the 4K of Wizard of Oz, the
Uh-huh.
one in the beautiful set and everything.
Yep.
And when I put it into my database, because I got like 10,000 movies on DVD, VHS, and all that, so I put it in a daily database. It said there was 5 movies on that 4K, and it said something like Wizard of Oz was made in the 1900s before the original Wizard of Oz,
Yes,
and
there's
there's
an
other
early.
different variations of it that were
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah.
I had no clue.
Oh yeah, there's an early black and white version. I think it was like 19. Oh, I forget the year. Maybe 1920 something. And if you pay attention, Laurel and Hardy is actually in that movie. He's the Tin Man.
Oh wow,
Yeah, so if
yeah.
pop it. I mean, it's a black and white. It's silent, and it's not. Is it the greatest movie? But it's worth the watch just for the the historical value of it. To say, okay, you can kind of see where MGM kind of took their lead and got some ideas from. You know.
Were you now being a Wizard of Oz fan from such a young age?
Yep.
Did you like when it was redone in color, or do you like the black and white version?
Are you referring to like the opening? The beginning of the movie that's in the sepia tone, or uh, because the whole movie is actually in color. That beginning sequence is in the sepia tone, and then when Dorothy opens the door to Oz, it transfers to color.
In 1930 something, they had color.
1939, yeah, it was one of the first Technicolor movies to be made. That's
Wow.
why that's why it costs. It was not cost effective. That's why the ruby slippers are the ruby slippers, because in the book, in the 1900 L. Frank Baum original story of the Wizard of Oz, as you know, the slippers are silver. And Louis B. Mayer didn't want silver slippers in his big Technicolor extravaganza that was going to be the Wizard of Oz, because they were kind of flat and they didn't really show up. So Noel Langley, who was the screenwriter, one day took a pencil and scratched out the word silver and wrote in ruby. And that's how the ruby slippers became the ruby slippers, because they wanted something bright and flashy to pop against that yellow brick road.
But we'll get to the ruby red slippers in a minute. But I was just schooled just then because I always thought it was in black and white. I
No, it
always
was
thought the
always.
whole thing was black and white.
Well, I remember my mom telling me when she was little, this, and again, dating ourselves, they didn't have a color TV. So for them, it was in black and white. So imagine being a kid in, 1950 and seeing that movie on TV and having a color TV and seeing that go from black and white to color. Or even being a kid in the 30s going to the movie theater and seeing that black and white when that's all you really saw. And then when she opens that door and there's Munchkinland in full, beautiful, bright color, that must have been mind-boggling back in 1939.
It had to be. I mean, I've got it on VHS, I've got it on DVD, I've got it on
Yep.
Blu-ray, I've
Yep.
got it on 3D Blu-ray, I've got it on 4K now. I
every
mean,
other every other format. Yeah.
every format you can imagine.
Yep.
And it's like,
Absolutely.
and I still collect them. If I see a VHS variation cover, I usually buy it.
Oh, absolutely.
Because
Yep. Yep.
that's just me as a collector of
Oh,
movies.
sure. Oh, absolutely. Yep. I mean, and I remember when they re-released it in the IMAX 3D. That was amazing. That was like seeing it again for the first time, because in the 3D and in that IMAX and that 4D or whatever it is, I'm not super tech savvy, but the color was so bright and the detail was amazing. And there were things, I've seen it countless times, and there were things that I saw for the first time, and things that I never noticed before. So having it in that, super clear, huge screen, that experience was like seeing it again for the first time.
And let's talk about some of the lore.
Oh,
So
sure.
I remember there was people that talked about the Yellow Brick Road was underneath MGM Studios, and that there was a Munchkin that died on the set that hung
Yeah, no.
himself. And I mean, so how much of the lore is actually true?
There's a few things that are true. Absolutely. The Yellow Brick Road was painted plywood. Unfortunately, it no longer exists. I don't think any remnants of it have ever turned up. It was just painted on the floor basically. Um, no one died on set. I hate to squash that rumor, but no one died on set. A Munchkin did not hang himself. What you see in that scene is actually a large bird. It's a stork that was in the background. Margaret Hamilton did get severely burned. That is true. She suffered second and maybe like third degree burns on her hand and on the side of her face. Toto did break an ankle. Or she actually, because Toto, as we know, was actually a female. Um, got stepped on by a Winky guard and broke her ankle, and she was out of commission for a couple weeks. Um, other than that, you know, as far as accidents and things, Betty Danko, who was Margaret Hamilton's stunt double, actually got burned as well, because when they were doing the flying scene, and you see the smoke come out of the back of the broom when she's doing the skywriting, Surrender Dorothy, um, the broom exploded. So they squashed that idea and they refilmed it using ink and milk and glass.
Oh, what about this? What about the guy who was on the Beverly Hillbillies was originally supposed to play a part, but he got sick.
Yes, Buddy Ebsen was originally cast as the Tin Man, and when they were applying his makeup, they used aluminum powder. So basically, what they would do is like coat his face with like a pancake makeup, and then they took the aluminum powder and dusted his face with the powder. What happened was the powder then coated his lungs because he was inhaling it, obviously, and he woke up one morning and couldn't breathe because his lungs were coated with aluminum powder. So he was taken to the hospital and he was put in an iron lung. And unfortunately, they couldn't halt production. So Jack Haley stepped in the role and they switched the aluminum powder to aluminum paste. And they painted his face with that so that he was not inhaling powder.
Is there actually any scenes with him in it at all?
Is there any what? I'm sorry?
Is there any scenes that were not used in the movie with Buddy Ebsen?
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry. Bear with me. Like I said, I'm outside. I had to take the dog for a walk, so I'm sorry about the passing traffic.
It's all right.
Yes, there are a few deleted scenes. One of the major ones, which most people know, was the jitterbug dance number was cut because they thought that the jitterbug dated the film. It was a popular dance craze of the 1930s, early 40s, and they didn't want to date the film by including the jitterbug. So that scene was cut. There is a line in which Margaret Hamilton, as the Wicked Witch, refers to the jitterbug when she's sending the flying monkeys out to the forest. And she says, I've sent a little insect on ahead to take the fight out of them. That insect that she's referring to would in fact be the jitterbug.
Oh, okay. Wow. So, do you think, being a historian, do you think that Judy Garland would have been as big as she is if she wasn't in Wizard of Oz?
That's a really great question. I mean, she was an up and coming star at MGM at the time. She was making about 1, 2, 3 movies a year. I think The Wizard of Oz really catapulted her to stardom. It was really her big, big break. MGM basically bought it for her. Everyone says, oh, well, Shirley Temple was going to originally be in it. And there may be some truth to that, but I don't think Shirley would have been really exactly right for that role. And I also don't think that Warner Brothers was going to loan Shirley to MGM at the time. There was a deal that they were trying to work out between loaning Clark Gable to Shirley Temple, and the deal kind of never really, went through. So Judy was always really the first, as far as I know, she was the first one to be considered for that role, and they really did kind of buy it for her.
Well, let's go a little further now. So, what do you think of some of the stuff that's been made about Wizard of Oz, like the Powerful Oz, the Tin Man, Emerald City, that was a failed TV show on NBC, The Wiz? I mean, what have you thought about some of these other things that have come out over the years?
I think some of the the spin-offs or the reimaginations, imaginings of the movie are actually not that bad. I mean, I think again, it introduces a new generation. It introduces a new set of folks to the story, to the movies, to the characters. I think some are better than others, absolutely. But I also think that um, it's all in the way that it's handled. And I think sometimes it's handled really. If it's handled well and it's done right, then they're actually really good. If it's not handled right, then it kind of loses its luster a little, if you will. But I think a lot of the reimaginings of the story is never a bad thing because again, it introduces a whole new generation and a new group of people to the story.
Let's talk about your experience. So, you got to hold the ruby red slippers,
I
or you
did,
got
yeah.
to be around them. Tell
Yeah.
me how that went down.
That was amazing. That was a really, really incredible experience. I was fortunate enough to head into New York City, not last week because last week was Thanksgiving. The week before, there was an event at Heritage Auctions the Monday night before the slippers went on public display, and I was invited to that event. I got to meet Michael Shaw, the owner of the Slippers, so that was really great. He's a super nice guy, very personable, very knowledgeable. He was really fun to talk to. Had a really wonderful experience meeting him. Um, the folks that are handling the sale, Heritage Auction, were extremely generous with their time, extremely generous with their with information, with the public, letting us really get to spend some time with the slippers, see them. They were on display at the event, obviously, which was really great. And then I was invited back the next day to be able to have a private you know, audience with them, if you will. It was like meeting the queen, having a private audience with the with the ruby slippers, and actually getting to hold them in my hands and just have that moment was it was kind of like an out of body experience. It was surreal. I mean, it was happening, but at the same time, there was like it didn't seem real. Like, I almost like you kind of see yourself from outside looking in, and it was like, oh my God, is this really happening? It was incredible. It was a once in a lifetime opportunity, and I'm so grateful that I had that experience.
So two things. Those slippers come up missing, right? For a long time, for years.
Yes. The pair that's going up for auction this weekend. The auction is December 7th. And again, it's at Heritage Auction. So if your viewers want to know more, definitely log on to Heritage Auctions and take a look. I think the bidding right now is at like 1.1 million or something, and they're estimated to go between 3 to 5, but I think they're going to go for more than that. But I'm sorry, what was your question again? I'm sorry.
They come up missing.
Oh, yes. The pair that's on up for auction right now is the pair that was stolen from the Judy Garland Museum back in 2008, if I'm not mistaken, and they went missing for about 13 years. And then they were recovered in 2015 by the FBI. There was an FBI sting, and they recovered the slippers because the person that stole them thought they were actually real rubies and wanted to get the reward money for them. There was like $1 million reward on them, and he got caught by the FBI, and that's how they were recovered, and they were authenticated through the Smithsonian, through the pair that they have, because the pair that's up for auction and the Smithsonian pair are a sister pair. Like, if you take the left from one and the right from the other, they match, and vice versa.
The ruby red slippers are not actually ruby red, correct?
No, they're a pretty dark red, almost like a pigeon blood, or if you've ever seen like a Burmese ruby, like a real dark ruby. Again, remember, they're 85 years old, so they have aged over time. But they were originally a darker red because when you hit them with all that light, when you're filming, they show up much brighter on screen.
Okay, cool. And
if they were that super bright red to begin with, and you hit them with all that light, it would wash out and they wouldn't show up as well.
So let's go back. So I read this morning that Drew Barrymore gave Ariana Grande the wand that Glinda had in The Wizard of Oz.
Yes, Drew Barrymore. Ariana was a guest on the Drew Barrymore show, I believe, yesterday or maybe the day before, and they did present her. I don't think they didn't give it to her, but they did have. They were able to loan from the person that owns the wand now.
Okay.
Yeah. So and Drew was a little off on her information. No disrespect to Drew. She did say that it was owned by the Smithsonian, which it was not. It was on loan for about a year from the previous owner, and then he loaned it to the Smithsonian for a year, and it was on display, and then he auctioned it off. And the current owner it's now held in a private collection. And that owner, I believe, is the person who they contacted Drew Barrymore show to let Ariana hold the wand.
Wow, that's
But
so cool. You know.
it is an
Uh,
authentic it is an authentic prop wand. It's a test wand, and you can tell it's a test wand because of the colors of the stones on the star. They're all clear stones. The actual screen use wand has colored stones.
so my next question for you is: do you have anything of Wizard of Oz from back then in your collection?
I have some autographs. I have some original studio stills. I have a lot of the first edition. I have actually a complete set of the first edition uh, books. Um, they refer to them as the Fabulous 40. If you go from the Wizard of Oz up through the 40 books that were written, I have a full, complete set of first editions of those. Um, as far as things from the movie itself, I don't own any props or costumes yet. Um, yet being
Yeah,
the
I
operative,
got you. Yeah.
yet, because you never know. Things keep turning up. Things turn up and come to public. I mean, there's stuff out there, and I do know a few folks who do own a few original things and have things. And those folks have been very forthcoming, and they I think that stuff like this, it's great that yes, it goes to a private collector and it's held, and these collectors really treasure and value and take care of these things. But again, share them with the public. There's such a public interest in this stuff
Hmm.
um, that if you have the wherewithal and the means to do it, then definitely share it. Why not? Um, I
Do you
think that
think that? Do you think a lot of this stuff from all these older movies came to be for people to buy because Debbie Reynolds passed away? Because she
yeah.
owned a lot of stuff, right?
Debbie had a ton of stuff. Debbie was at the 1970 MGM auction, and she was buying up things, because her intention was to open up her museum to share these things with the public, like I was saying.
Mhm.
So I think things are coming up because Debbie sold a lot of her collection. These older collectors are passing on, and they want to make sure that their collections go to the right place, are being preserved and are going to the right place, are being, put in the right hands so that they will be preserved for future generations. I think that's why I think Michael Shaw is selling his pair of slippers now. I think, he has had his time with them, after talking with him. Um, he's loved them for so many years, and he's like, you know what, I want to share them with other people. He goes, that was always my intention. That's what he did with his pair, because his pair is known as the traveling pair. And when Michael owned them, he would take them on tour. He would take them to children's hospitals. He would take them to malls, to libraries, and he would share them with the public. That was always his intent. His intent was never to lock them away for years and years and years so that nobody knew where they were. Nobody ever got to see them.
Well, let's talk about Wicked a little bit. I saw
Sure.
Wicked in 3D on opening night.
Nice.
Uh, I went into it totally open. I hated the movie because I just don't like musicals that much,
Yeah.
and I talked my wife into getting 3D. We got the last tickets. Pretty much was in the whole building of the place we went to Regal,
Yep.
and I have to say, because I just did a review for my other show, and I have to say I gave it a 10 out of 10. I think it was the most amazing movie since Star Wars I think I've ever seen. It
It was.
was
Yeah.
it was just, you know, take all the politics out of it, take all the other garbage everybody wants to talk about. It's a beautiful movie about two friends, how they evolve, and they leave you on the edge of your seat going, we got to wait a year for the second part. You got to
Exactly
be
right.
kidding me.
I need a year to recover emotionally from this because it was so great. I loved it. I've seen the show on Broadway. I've seen it. I live in Massachusetts, and luckily Boston gets some pretty good Broadway shows. So I was lucky enough to see it again here in Boston. And I thought it paid wonderful homage to the original musical. I thought I'm sorry. I thought Ariana and Cynthia, did, you know, paid tribute to Kristen Chenoweth and Adina. You know, and I loved the no spoilers, but I thought that the cameo was fantastic. You know, I didn't realize it was that much of a
Hey,
cameo.
it's
And
not. It's not a spoiler. It's been out for 2 weeks now.
I
Come
know,
on.
right? You know, I thought that was fantastic. I loved it. And it did leave you on the edge of your seat, like you said, Michael. You know, it was really, it
Especially that
was,
last sequence. You know, the
oh, the
last
last,
sequence
oh,
and the
yeah, that,
broom,
you know,
and then
defying,
when she gets the broom, and
yeah,
it's kind of like everything else we see today. It
yep.
makes us not hate the Wicked Witch because we see how
She's
she
not the bad
betrayed them.
guy. Yeah, no, she's definitely, you know, I mean, if you really kind of pay attention, you know, I mean, one of the opening, you know, in the opening sequence when they're singing, you know, good news, she's dead, you know, and then there's that little narration over that where Glinda says, you know, are people born wicked or do they have wickedness thrust upon them? You know what? She's not. No one is born wicked. No one is born
Yeah,
prejudiced. No one is born. You learn it. You know, that's you're a product of your environment, and you learn it. Um, you know, so it's very poignant. You know, and what's going on. Not to get political and to take all that
yeah,
out of it, like you said, but it is very poignant, and it's a wonderful story about acceptance and friendship, and you know,
well,
people.
let's talk about some of the things that we saw in it. First of all, the two cast members were in it from the play. The
Oh
man
yeah.
who wrote the play was in it.
Yep. See, yep.
Uh, we found out that the lion cub that they save is a lion from the Wizard of Oz.
Yep.
Uh, we find out later that some of the theories are that her sister's going to become the other Wicked Witch, the one
Correct.
that's in a wheelchair. We
Yep.
find out that Glinda isn't as pure as she says she is,
No, she's not.
and the wizard is an old evil man that
He's a
has a
sham. Yeah,
that has
he's
a
a sham.
girlfriend. I'm going to call her his girlfriend, Michelle Yao, is just as wicked as him.
Oh yeah. Yep, she's in on it too. You know, she knows what's up. You know, and that's why they use. You know, there always has to be a scapegoat, or you know, I mean, like the wizard says, you know, if you want to give people a show, give them a real good enemy. You know,
Yeah,
give them someone to dislike. Because you always need a scapegoat. You know, and that's what unfortunately Elphaba becomes, that scapegoat, and is basically turned wicked. You know, she's not actually wicked or bad, but she has it thrust upon her. You know, and that's really the outcome. You know, I can't wait for part two, because part two, you know, really ties the story all together and all those loose ends. And it's really wonderful storytelling. You know, Gregory Maguire, who wrote the book, set out to write a book about wickedness and about evil people, or are people really evil? And he was kind of trying to come up with a character, and who he was trying to come up with, like, who can I base this on? And then that's when he came up with the Wicked Witch of the West, and
and
built
of
the story
course,
around her. And it's if you read the book, you know, it's really kind of told from her point of view.
we find out now that there will be Dorothy in it this time, and
Yes,
the Wizard of Oz we know, and what's going on now runs parallel with each other. So we're
correct,
gonna see
correct.
we're gonna see the Yellow Road. We're gonna see Dorothy when she comes. We're gonna see all that.
Yep.
So all the good stuff's gonna be coming.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
there's there.
I didn't know that when I saw the movie though. So when I'm walking out of the theater, I'll never forget walking out of the theater. I said, you know, I think if this is over, they're going to make another Wizard of Oz. My wife, who is a Wizard of Oz fan, goes, huh, that wouldn't be so bad, would it? I'm like, what? I was, I thought, I thought she was going to say that's blasphemy, but she's like,
Right.
she was all into it. You know, it was like, yes, let's go. The biggest
Yeah, yeah.
heartbreak she had, we went the day of the show and we went to Regal. She got the one bucket that looks like the thing that they go up in the balloon in,
Oh
and she
yeah.
got the Wicked Witch hat, the drink Wicked Witch hat cup, but she didn't get the pink and green popcorn bucket. They were sold out. are the cups, and I haven't seen none of them come online anywhere except for $100. And that's something I'd really like to find for her because
Yeah, I'll have to keep my eyes open if I,
she just
because I'm hoping to go see it again. I want to see it in the 3D because I saw it in the, the digital print the first time around, but I think I need to go see it in the 3D.
have to see in
So
3D.
if I find that popcorn bucket, I will certainly let you know.
And the thing about 3D, let me tell you, we watch 3D movies, obviously, like Marvel movies and all these
Oh,
other
sure.
movies. The 3D is really like warm. It's light, and it's not everything is 3D. It's like
Hmm.
you see in most movies. It's just certain parts of it is 3D. So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
makes it more, I don't know, I want to say warmer. That's the word I want to use because it
Sure.
does. It makes it really just warm and inviting because it's not like
Yeah,
the
it's
whole
not
time,
like, yeah, it's not in your face. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
and I think that's what sets it apart from other, 3D movies. And listen, up until a year ago when Avatar came out, we didn't get no 3D movies.
Yeah,
So
very few and far between. Yeah, yeah.
3D's coming back, and like Monona. I know I said that wrong, but Part Two come out this weekend, and it's in 3D. And that
Oh yeah, Moana. Or, yeah, yeah,
Moana. That's it. I said
yeah,
it
Moana.
wrong.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's been a pleasure talking to you, man.
Oh, you too.
Um, I love collecting things. Like I said, I've got like 10,000 movies, and
That's
I love
amazing.
collecting things. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. My
That's
wife's a
awesome.
big Wizard of Oz fan. She's got all the original Wizard of Oz plates that came out, the
Oh
original
yeah.
ones, not the Bradley men or whatever, but the original ones.
Yep. The ones from
And
1970s from Noel's company. Yeah, I have those.
yeah,
Yep, those are great.
yeah,
Yep.
she has them, including the big one that
Oh yeah.
everybody wants.
Yep. The grand
Um,
finale. Yep.
yeah, so she's a huge Wizard of Oz fan, and when we went to see Wicked, I just love seeing her face, man, because it was like this was her going and seeing something that her grandkids or our grandkids are going to be able to put together with the Wizard of Oz and make it like a 3 movie night thing, you
Oh,
know?
absolutely, absolutely. No, that's like I was saying before. That's why I'm so happy that Wicked has been so well received, and it's getting the marketing that it's getting, and it's getting the publicity, and it's the great reviews because it introduces these characters to a whole new generation of people who are then going to want to go back and find out, well, why and how, so that it's going to introduce the Wizard of Oz to a whole new generation of people.
I'll leave you with this. I seen a thing yesterday. I didn't know this till yesterday, but on the back of the action figure, the 12-inch,
Mm-hmm.
it says www.wicked.com. And it's supposed to say wickedmovie.com. And if you go to wicked.com, it goes to a porno site.
Yeah, they
So,
pulled all the Oh yeah. They pulled all the collectibles. Like I was in Target today actually, and there's none of the dolls are on the shelves. I'm lucky I got them when I did because mine all say Wicked, but not that I logged on to find out. I'm like,
oh,
um,
come on. You can tell us it's a secret. No. But, I mean,
but
I
yeah,
just thought
no.
that was funny. I bet somebody got fired for that one.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, someone had a bad day that day.
You walk this earth, breathe this air, but you feel unsafe.